Hello everybody, today I'm going to be doing a new album review. This time I'm going to be reviewing the new Glass Animals album, Dreamland. This is their third album, their first album in quite a while. So going into this, I wasn't sure which direction they were going to go with. It did seem like they were going to be doing something a bit more out of the ordinary than what they usually do. So part of me was actually looking forward to it. Did it actually live up to any hype or expectations? Not really. And I feel confident saying that upright. I know I feel like this album will get a lot of praise from fans, from critics alike, but I have some pretty big flaws with this album right off the bat, and I don't go too deep into this side of albums that much because not every artist is the best at lyrics. I get that. But the lyrics really are not that strong on this album. There are multiple weird references, multiple instances in which they come off very, very cringe, very forced, and I'm not liking it. For example, the title track, Dreamland, obviously, is not inherently a bad song by any means, but it's lyrics are just not that good. I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't like them. It's referring to the album making process, but not in a way that's cool or fun, but a way that seems uncreative, uninspired, and forced, lol, random in a way. And this is something that comes up a lot on this album. A lot of these tracks are like a forced weirdness. It's like, I could be weird, so I'm just gonna do it for the sake of doing it, because I'm weird. And that's almost like the whole point of some of these songs. For example, some of these bad lyrics with references to Pokemon and GTA on Space Ghost just come off as them trying to come up with cool, fun, ironic, edgy stuff. Not even edgy, just random stuff to be putting in there to get some of their fans to think they're being really experimental. And that is something that I see come up a lot on this album. It's much more experimental, a lot more little synthy stuff going on here than a lot of their previous works. And I have nothing wrong with that. Obviously, I like Radiohead. Obviously, I like the 1975. I like Depeche Mode. A lot of these bands experiment a lot. But they do it in a way that actually seems heartfelt and passionate. This doesn't. And you do get some songs that do kind of follow through a pretty traditional pop formula as well, which kind of is weird considering they do seem to want to be a bit more experimental, and yet they pull out songs like this. Tangerine, for example, has a pretty solid beat, pretty solid trap beat, but the vocals don't really fit, and this is something I see brought up again and again and again. You get instrumentals that are pretty standard for pop music, for indie music of this day, and yet the vocals are trying too hard to be unique and odd, and then it makes everything feel off. And a song like Hot Sugar to me is just bland. There's nothing inherently good or bad about it. It's just about as standard of a pop song as you can get. So, what is it about this? How did this go so wrong? I mean, usually albums like this, left turns, like Notes on a Conditional Form, like Kid A, usually are pretty good. Oftentimes, it's the sound of a band experimenting with things they don't usually do, and the end result is actually usually pretty interesting and becomes a fan favorite. Why did this one not reach that level? First off, like I said, the forced weirdness, the forced randomness really comes off as forced and unnatural. And there's no chemistry between any of the band. It doesn't even sound like a band. And this is a really important part that I think a lot of bands forget about when they're trying to be experimental. For example, on Radiohead's Kid A, even though it's very electronic and sure there's not guitar, bass, and drums on every song, each of the band members contributed to the making of that album, and the chemistry was there. To me, this feels like the singer singing over some bad, poorly produced beats. This does not sound to me like a band that is there, all working together with great chemistry. No, it sounds to me like a band that is, going out of their way to do something odd and weird, and in the meantime, they're kind of missing their whole chemistry. And they're losing that chemistry, making everything kind of feel like a bloated mess, even though it's only 46 minutes long. Now, yes, this is a very critical review. I apologize for those who like this album. I know I'm going to get dislikes, but I do think Melon and the Coconut is an interesting melody. I do like the little guitar, and when they kind of do those kind of songs a bit more the more minimalistic songs, where it's just kind of a guitar arpeggio and some keys, those usually turn out a bit better, I've noticed. And they do actually feel a bit more experimental in a weird... They do feel a bit more out there in a natural way. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have too much else to say. I wasn't necessarily hyped up for this album, but I was hoping that it would, kind of be better than I was hoping. So, unfortunately, this is a very critical review, and I have settled on giving this album an unfortunate, and I'm very unfortunate, 3 out of 10. Anybody that knows my reviews knows anything above a 5 is good, anything below a 5 is bad. So unfortunately a 3 is not that good of a review. That does mean that I don't like it too much. However, because it's at a 3 and not, say, a 1, the band still has potential. The band can still move on and progress from this. Maybe return to a more sound that they know works better. And just overall, I think they still have potential, so I'm not giving up. But that is it for now. Glass Animals Dreamland, 3 out of 10. Oopsie.